another really, really good horror game at the time when it was released. Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Now,
I've heard of this one.
I never got to finish this one because I had the old, GPU that's in that PC over there, the Radeon X 1950 Pro, which wasn't necessarily super duper mega compatible with the game. So when the red stuff started showing up, like in corridors, I'd get like 2 frames an hour. So it was unplayable from a point. I didn't really mind because that game scared the crap out of me. Now, I know that some people, some friends of mine have told me, well, there's no monster. Even the developer said that there's no monster. It's just you there. There's nothing to be afraid. But when you're there, when there's the hint that there's something after you, you panic. And the thing that really made me panic the most was like seeing tracks, like steps forming in puddles of water in front of me, coming closer, faster, faster, faster. That just, like, how do you react to that? Is it trying to kill me? Does it want a hug?
You run the fuck away.
Yeah, you run the fuck away, and that's what I did and hid. It was a really great game for its time.
It's a good thing that is most likely the most realistic video game in history, because that's what most reasonable, rational people would do when faced with some bullshit like that. Like, if you walk into a house and the house says, "Get out," I'm getting the fuck out. Like, I'm not gonna like, "Oh, you just heard it. Oh, I was tired." I'm getting the fuck out. There is so many more houses. I don't need this shit. Fuck it.
Amnesia was really great for its time. Since then, pretty much everybody has done that shtick. Amnesia and its predecessors, the Penumbra series, came out when horror games were, well, they weren't really pure horror games anymore. They were more shooters with horror elements. Fear was a shooter with horror elements. Some of them pretty good.
Yeah, it was a good. I actually played it, and I don't play FPSs normally, and I remember playing it and digging it.
Yeah, but
because of the horror overall vibe.
But when Penumbra came out, I think the first one will let you carry some weapons or something. I don't remember it all that well. But as the series went on, you had basically no means of defending yourself against enemies. Just maybe had like a torch that you could shine, and it would, like a lantern, it ran out of batteries, ran out of fuel, and you just need to hide. Otherwise, get killed by something that's hiding in the shadows, stalking you. And since
anyone remembers that from the 2000s?
I'll be watching, I'll be waiting in the shadows.
Any
I know it's the copyright bot. It's the copyright bot. Run.
Any other mid-30 motherfuckers out there who remember that? Okay.
So since then, Amnesia has this genre of you can't really do much against the horror thing has taken off, and it became a parody of itself with the Slender Man things, where you just go into a forest and look at signs posted to a tree, and there's something behind you. And that was sort of the low point of this interpretation of horror. There were some upsides. The SCP, the something containment series. There's, I don't know if you've played any of them. They're the ones where you're sort of like investigating or work at a holding facility for paranormal things.
What the fuck are you talking about, Hellboy?
No. It's sort of like Hellboy.
This sounds like Hellboy.
They're basically indie games. Like they're made by people that were just fans of what essentially is a wiki where people wrote horror creepypasta and then turned it into games. And they can be really great because each entity there has different properties. One of them is basically like the weeping angels in Doctor Who. They can only approach you when you're not looking at them, and they move fast, and there's only one of them, and you have to get away from them. But it's kind of hard because you're gonna have to open a door, you're gonna have to look at the door, and when you do, that motherfucker is going to be right next to your ear whispering, "Dead." It's the SCP series. I shall played one of them, the one with the thing that was moving really fast. But that was like one of the positives that came out of the everybody's making Slenderman games,
Mm.
which again is spawned off from the whole idea of Amnesia, where you don't have weapons, you can't defend yourself, you're just trying to not die. Also, you're looking into absolutely every drawer possible for things. At some point, it became opening drawers the game. That's actually sort of Frictional's MO. They insisted on making everything be physically tangible and physically relatable. So when you open a door, you open it like physically. You put your hand on the handle and pull it quickly or slowly, depending on how much you want it to creak and how much noise you want it to make. And that gives the sense of believability, a sense of belonging to that world. It puts you in that world so well that when something starts like whispering or you feel a cold breath in your ears from the sound if you're playing with headphones, you really start to brown your pants. It works.
It just works.
Yeah, absolutely. And up until then, you mostly again have horror games like Dead Space, where yeah, it's horror, but you have a weapon that can slice bits of a ship in pieces.
Well, technically speaking, you have a tool, basically.
It's a multi-tool that's designed to rip things apart that aren't meant to be ripped apart.
Oh. Well, on the other hand, in Dead Space, there's things that grow out of human bodies that aren't supposed to grow out of human bodies to begin with. So
True.
It's a give and take.
It evens itself out a bit, but it's
a
still
wash, yeah.
The
and
second
then,
one. Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, and also going further, there's also the other extreme sort of in which they go just crazy with the visual theme, and I remember watching you play something called Agony. If you remember.
Yeah. And they keep making like expansions or sequels for that lean not so much on the horror aspect, but more on the boinking demons aspect.
Yeah, so that's also something. I mean, it from an artist standpoint, I'm like, go right ahead, totally fine. That's what you want to express. That's totally fine. Not necessarily what I'm interested in, but something I am interested in: turn-based RPGs. My next title is another Lovecraft has. Sorry about that. I need more tea. Lovecraft has been steadily building up in pop culture in the recent, I'm gonna say decade. It could be 15 years, but I'm gonna say decade. And it's been the it thing in horror and in other things for quite a while. We're still in it. I don't see any chance of it going away, because now people are finally starting to sort of deconstruct it and also repurpose it in things like that show. What is it called? The Lovecraft show.
I forgot.
Lovecraft Country. It's called Lovecraft Country.
Yeah.
In which the discourse behind it is way more interesting than, I mean, the show itself, I understand, is really good, but the discourse behind it is sort of really more interesting because Lovecraft was a gigantic racist and whatnot. But the title I'm talking about is also another indie title called Stygian, Reign of the Old Ones, which takes place in the Lovecraft universe. Yeah, it does, because there is Miskatonic University. And it's super duper weird. But the really cool thing it does is that it allows you to, the world, the game, will react to you depending on the type of character you build, in the sense of not necessarily a build in the traditional sense of like weapon, armor, or stealth, but a build in the sense of your philosophical take on things and your moral and ethical, your character's moral, ethical choices and proclivities. So, for instance, if you choose a character that is an existentialist, you will have different options when dealing with the things in the game than someone who is super religious, or someone who is a pacifist, or someone who is an academic, or that sort of stuff. And it's a really nice, it's nothing more than just when we talk about mechanically speaking, those are just traits, but it works really well because it helps immerse you in the Lovecraft not only world but also time, because this takes place in like the 20s. So there's a lot of the art style is kind of like hand drawn, but it's very messy and not necessarily. It is proportional, but it has this vibe, this sort of grimy, unhinged aspect to it, so that it works with both the time and what's going on. Because basically what happens is that you find yourself, you don't just wake up in a city, in a town, which is valid for like we're gonna accept that it's valid for Lovecraft. And as far as you know, the rest of the world has disappeared, has been destroyed, and just this town and its surroundings somehow survive somewhere in space, because the stars aren't the same. And
what you're saying is the stars aren't right.
Sorry about that. And the thing is that, and this leads to a shift in everything. Basically, it leads to a shift in economics. Now the currency of choice is cigarettes, and also, in sort of leadership, because the mobsters tend to rule everything because they had the guns previously and whatnot. And there's also all of these weird sort of things that keep on happening, and there's dubious creatures and
Tentacles.
but until the tentacles, there's arguably weirder shit. And as you advance, it's ideal for you to avoid combat, because combat almost never takes place against humans. There's a couple of them that can be against humans, not ideal. But combat generally isn't against sane humans, and surviving each combat will add a layer of fatigue, of mental fatigue on your characters.
Yeah, that's a big thing in the Call of Cthulhu adventure RPG as well. Sanity.
Yeah, sanity, basically. And you advance in level and you can get more things, but you also advance in this fatigue thing. And at a certain point, you start gaining debuffs. Like you get perks and then you get debuffs from this one. And that furthermore brings home this whole the whole point of, you're surviving, but at what cost to your mind? So yeah, it's ideal to avoid combat. You can't necessarily do that all the time. You will have to fight to a certain degree. But yeah, it's also really super interesting in terms of everything you find and the discussions you can sort of have with the various characters, the things you can explore, the things you might not want to explore because of this mental toll. But yeah, Stygian, Reign of the Old Ones, I covered it on my channel. Obviously, you can find the review there. But it's definitely really good. It's a really good title for our for this episode's theme.
Having played a lot of the pen and paper Call of Cthulhu RPG, I can say that Stygian Reign of Evil Gods is probably the best implementation of a game. Well, it's not an official adaptation of the RPG, but it is as close to it as possible.
Yeah,
And it
in a
is
video game.
fantastic.
Hmm.
Again,
It was really.
it drives home the point that your sanity is probably your most precious thing, because as in the pen and paper RPG, bad things will happen to you. Maybe not as creative things as you can do in a live action, because at one
Fair
point,
enough.
because of something that a doctor in our party saw, he went crazy, left, like just ran away, and came back a day later, covered in blood and holding a dead cat.
Hmm.
We're not sure.
Whose blood that was? Was it the cat's blood? I don't know.
We're not sure if he killed the cat or if he killed multiple cats, but we kept joking that he ate cats while he was in his fugue state.
Mm-hmm. So and yeah, and also you have to keep in mind the game does its best to keep to as realistic sort of an approach to things. So healing is highly difficult, and you can get some things, but they're 1920s drugs, and drugs back then were literal
Cocaine.
drugs, pretty much. So keep that in mind as well. But yeah, Stygian, Reign of the Dark Ones, really solid Lovecraftian experience.
And kind of in the same vein would be one of the progenitors of the 3D survival horror game, Alone in the Dark. That was, I think the first one was a literal Call of Cthulhu adaptation, well, unofficial one, because it did feature a lot of the tropes of Call of Cthulhu, like taking place in the 20s or so,
I think you're right.
being about an investigator, having various creatures that looked like they would be described in a Call of Cthulhu story. And, well, for its time, it was horrifying on two levels. On the one hand, it was meant to be a horror game. Again, one of those panic-inducing games where you don't know what you can do, what you should do. You have very few options in terms of defending yourself. If you use up too much of your ammo, you're gonna not be able to survive the next encounter and so forth. But one of the things that really sold it as a horror game for me were the graphics. They sucked. Like, they looked horrifying unto themselves. The first enemy that you see, you see him running at you from outside and coming towards a window. You don't know what that is. It looks like a horrifying shape of angles and triangles and color and teeth. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. Is it a big rat? Is it a wolf? Is it some kind of deranged hamster? An ocelot that mutated? It could be anything. It was just horrifying. And you just had to react. And the game, sort of established the ideas of survival horror. You have your inventory, have to find ammo, have to find items, have to do stupid puzzles that really don't have anything to do with the real world. It pioneered the whole, move the statue of the goddess in this police precinct to the right place to unlock the exit to the police precinct in Raccoon City or something. It's a bit of Resident Evil that always seemed stupid to me, but it came from this game, because this game had that kind of stupid, it had adventure game puzzles in a non-adventure game setting, which made them even more frustrating because you're constantly being followed by Frankensteinian monsters and stuff that, again, looked like it get out of Call of Cthulhu. There were a bunch of them. There were 3 games in the original franchise, you could say, with the original Edward Carnby, or I forget what her name is. You could choose between the characters in the first ones. Then came the 4th one, which... Actually, fun fact: the lead designer of the fourth one actually had a talk about game design in Romania a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
Claudio, my old boss, who also worked on Level, actually organized the thing. If I'm not mistaken, it was a neat. I didn't go to it because a different town, couldn't go there, but it was a neat thing. So the fourth one was made in the vein of another game that I'll get to at some point. Vein of having like pre-rendered 3D backgrounds. Okay, it's sort of like the same vein as the first one, but it was made with updated technology. There was a time when this kind of game like really hit home, like it was everywhere. And in this case, Edward Carnby, I believe, was actually I think he was always a bit partly Native American, but in this one he was fully Native American, I believe, and he could actually like fight the monsters a bit better. Then came the one that Uwe Boll adapted into a movie, which it was Nightwish's first foray into movie soundtracks. Oh, those poor people! Like they didn't license their music well.
They did not choose wisely.
The one place where their music kind of was well licensed to was in the Risen, the video game Risen. In the trailer, it had Poet and the Pendulum, and the trailer just butchered it completely. Like you could hear where they cut it in the bits, and it was painful. But anyway, back to Alone in the Dark. The movie, the game that got adapted into the movie was like it came out in 2008 when people were experimenting with things, and the thing that this experimented with was one, it was fire propagation. Like anything that was flammable would catch on fire, and that was a big thing in games back then. This game, Far Cry 2, they all tried to have fire tech, and for a while it looked like, we were going to get like physically interactive games with everything is physically based. Penumbra came out coming around the same time, and you could interact with things, and we no longer do that. We mostly have dancing unicorns and whatever Fortnite does now. But another thing that game did was blinking. You could manually blink. You could also drive a car up a building by mistake because of bugs. And then Atari went insane and launched a bad clone of Left 4 Dead called Alone in the Dark Illumination, which I don't believe exists anymore. It was purged from Steam. I still have it because I had it at the time. I had a review sample of it. And that series really... It birthed this genre, the survival horror genre, and just went to crap. Hard. Like super hard. Which is a shame because it started from such a level. A janky level, but still from it spawned this... It spawned Silent Hill, it spawned Resident Evil. Well, again, Silent Hill did kind of copy The Uninvited in many aspects. But it spawned so many things, and now it's gone. It's in the hands of whatever is left of the corpse of Atari now. Shame.
Well, I'll take it from there. On that light note, my next one is I only have 2 more titles, by the way. So penultimate title is another one that is Lovecraft sort of inspired. It's called, but this is something that I normally play. It's called Shrouded Isle. Now, Shrouded Isle is a what I call an interactive narrative game / sort of RPG. It is similar in approach to one of my absolute favorite games ever, King of Dragon Pass. And depending on when this video goes out, I either already covered Shrouded Isle or will cover it fairly soon. In Shrouded Isle, you are the new high priest of an island cult, an island community which is inhabited by what could be defined as a death cult, to a dark god. And your job is to, at the beginning of each season, you get a message from your dark god, who tells you which person on the island to sacrifice. Human sacrifice is a thing in this game. But as it is the habit of all deities throughout history, motherfuckers not exactly pinpoint bullseye sure about whom exactly to sacrifice. So the dude will say, and I say dude because the god's name is Chernobyl.
Which you may have
says
seen
like,
in Fantasia.
possible. Says like, oh, give me the lying one, give me the thief, give me the glutton, etc. So what you have to do then as a priest is to look for this person so that you can sacrifice them. How do you do this? Well, the entire island community isn't run by you. Actually, you're kind of in charge of the spiritual life, but in charge of the rest of the life, a bunch of old school rich ass families, and each family has its own sort of segment of the island, of the community that it deals with, and you appoint sort of counselors from each family, and you can these are the people that you have to sacrifice. At the end of each season, you will have to sacrifice one person. So that right there is something that you have, is a type of mental weight that you have to go with, because you will be using these people. Like, you will be using their abilities to a certain degree. And regardless of whether or not they prove to be useful or not, if they turn out to be the one the god wants, what are you going to do? Are you going to sacrifice them or not sacrifice them? Because someone's getting sacrificed. Like, you have to kill people. You have to sacrifice people. And you, as the priest, you also have basically reputation scores with each family, and you can be in the plus and in the minus depending on how many of their people you choose to work for you, or how often you work with them, and other decisions that you take during a season. So the idea is that you have to prepare the community for the coming of the dark god. And you do this by doing all of the things the dark god asks of you, and you have to do. And it's all kind of what you call it, terror sort of, but not really. It's like very deep religious sort of control over people, and building monuments, and burning books and that sort of stuff. The thing is that the game is much like in the vein of King of Dragon Pass. It's just told through basically just static images and text. There's a lot of that. That might seem like it might get old really fast. It doesn't really, to be honest. You do have to like to read a lot, and I like to read a lot. I like to write, and I like to read a lot. That's why I also like King of Dragon Pass. Great art, King of Dragon Pass. Nothing, but the point is the text, and the same thing with Shrouded Isle as well. It's a very interesting and, if I remember correctly, fairly challenging game. Granted, haven't played it in many years, but again, like I said earlier, by the time this one comes, I will have already played it. And possibly covered it. If not, it's the video for it is coming soon. But yeah, Shrouded Isle goes on the list. is definitely gloomy and weird. Because so the thing is the experience I initially had with, and maybe that changed in the meanwhile, is that I wasn't really sure if where this was taking place, like if this was taking place in the real world or not. Because again, like we know of weird cults segregating themselves in some difficult to reach spot compound and shit ensuing. So for a while that kind of goes, and there's this this underlying mystery of what the fuck is going on around this island community. And there are occasional events that happen that give you quick glimpses into the outside world. And the outside world is fucked up. It seems that it is actually taking place in a highly Lovecraftian world, Lovecraftian inspired world. So yeah, like there is again, I'm going off of what I remember from years ago. Right now, again, time shenanigans will ensue. But yeah, I thought about what to thematically play and cover for the traditional sort of general Halloweeny thing, and I didn't do anything special for many years. And I'm like, nah, this is the year. Yeah, Shrouded Isle it is and is going to be. So if you like anything related, anything close to King of Dragon Pass or its spiritual successor, Six Ages, or in general things where you have to make decisions and pay attention and investigate motherfuckers and that sort of stuff, give Shrouded Isle a look.
Also, if you're into cults, from my perspective today on Steam, a game called Honey, I Joined the Cult came out. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like a cult version of Prison Tycoon. I haven't played it yet.
No. But so what, Prison Tycoon, you build a cult?
Yeah.
Okay.
You build it, you manage it, you prepare the Kool-Aid.
I'm gonna have to take a look at it. We'll see. I have, like I just said, quite busy in terms of what I have to what I want to cover, but I'll have to take a look at it and see what's what.
So the penultimate game I'm gonna talk about two of them, like back to back, so you'll save your last one for the final one. Sure. There was, well, I actually think there still is, a studio called Terminal Reality. Now you may know it best for the Blood Rain series with the vampire. Again, Uwe Boll made a bunch of movies based on it. He made a parody of his third movie while shooting the third movie with Blood Rain, but she's fat and he's German. Hard to explain the man. Apart from getting money from failed movies, that's how his grift operates. But anyway, Terminal Reality used to make a certain type of game that I alluded to with Alone in the Dark 4. There were these games that had like really wonderful pre-rendered backgrounds and 3D models for characters. That's how games were for like 8 years or something. Like since the PlayStation 1 launched to basically the beginning of the PlayStation 2 era. That's how games looked. Most of them. Beautiful backgrounds, pre-rendered, and 3D models for characters that moved around. And one of, I believe, the best looking ones were made by Terminal Reality. I'm referring specifically to Nocturne, which was basically Hellboy. It was, you were playing as an agent of an organization called the Spook House. And you were sent on missions to deal with stuff like vampires, like mobsters coming back to life as Frankensteinian entities. You actually recruited one of those Frankensteinian entities to your team. You didn't only play like with multiple characters, just one character. You played as the Stranger, I believe his name was. Like, he had goggles, had like a thing over his face, sort of like the Shadow.
Okay.
He was a mix between the Shadow and the Grey Ghost from Batman.
The animated series.
Yeah, and he was really cool. So, in terms of horror, it leaned more towards well, not super towards the survival horror because it wasn't that kind of game. It did have the obnoxious puzzles and the obnoxious platforming. Actually, initially I wasn't able to finish the first chapter of the game because before you go to the final boss, the big bad vampire, you have to walk up some stairs, and I slid off them and got stuck between the stairs and a fence or something like a fence, and I could never like get out of there. And if I'm not mistaken, the game didn't have a traditional save and load feature, so I had to retrace my steps from a long time ago, and it was in a time when if this happened, I couldn't be bothered. The same thing happened to me with what's it called, Vampire the Masquerade Redemption, where you could not save. Like, the game didn't have a save option in the initial version. You had to have the patch version. And I died at the first boss battle, and then I had to retrace my steps again and did not bother with it for years. But anyway, Nocturne was great. Like, it had great atmosphere because you were going to, again, it's sort of aping Alone in the Dark, because you were going to settings that were typically associated with the horror. Like in Alone in the Dark one, you were in a mansion. In the second one, I think it was the second one, you were in the Wild West. And in this one as well, you were fighting, I'm not sure if it was the werewolf on the train in the Wild West, but I know there were werewolves at one point, and at some point you were in the Wild West on a train. And it was at night, it was very moody, atmospheric. The music was great because it was all free music, freely available music, because they didn't have a budget, and they just pulled like the classic horror music you can hear everywhere with the classic stingers that and stuff like that. They did a lot with a game that basically went nowhere. The plot just ends at one point with a big cliffhanger, and they never resolved it. Like 25 years later, still nothing. Well, not 25, but close to 25 years later. It sort of continued in a spiritual fashion with Blood Rain, because technically the character Rain shows up in Nocturne as Svetlana Lupescu. It's the same character. She's dressed a bit more sensibly, like 0.5%, but she's still there, and it's great. It's a horror game from the perspective of people that have to deal with horror stuff on a daily basis as their day job, and sometimes they're not really impressed by, oh look, vampire bat, dead. Oh, Frankenstein mobsters. Okay, that's a more interesting. Sad that they didn't really continue it in any way. It does end on a big cliffhanger. Did you by any chance get to play Nocturne?
No, I don't. I haven't even heard of it, to be honest.
They also made like in the exact same style and with crossovers. Actually, no, technically, the sequel would be Blair Witch. Blair Witch Coffin Spur or something, and Blair Witch. The Spook House had a doctor, a medic lady, and she would go out on missions by herself in other games. The Blair Witch series, which they made as an adaptation of the movie. It built upon that movie with mythology and other stuff. But anyway, Nocturne, good game for from that aspect of a horror game, for the atmosphere, for you being essentially a monster hunter, but that occasionally works with monsters, because not all monsters are bastards, just some of them. Actually, the first chapter ends with you killing the vampire, only to realize that, oh yeah, by the way, that vampire you killed, he was just some klutz that took over the castle. The real vampire, like the real big boss, was one that called you. You basically took out his garbage. That's how it works. A great game. And the final game I want to talk about is the one where not even the developer knew it made a horror game. I told them they made a horror game. Now, some of you may remember about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, there was a game called Recettear, an item shop's tale. Now, you may be wondering, how is that a horror game? It's an anime thing where you run a shop. What's horror about it? Well, firstly, the art style. The characters have completely dead eyes. Like, you stare into them and you just feel your soul being sucked away. Especially the fairy that comes to your house one day and tells you, oh, everything you own, no, the bank now owns it. You must work your entire life to pay the debt that I don't think you even made. Somebody made in your name, your parents or grandparents, somebody. You are now stuck in a hellhole of a shop. You will be working a service job all your remaining life. And the theme of, well, the slogan that the main character keeps saying, you know, to push her through this abject terror is capitalism ho. Now, I'm not sure if she's saying ho in the sense of, you know, heave ho, or if she acknowledges that that is the position she's in. She has been put in that position by capitalism because she's wasting her life making a shop, you know, negotiating prices with people that are probably gonna die. She's part of the military-industrial complex in a fantasy world. She's giving them weapons. She's giving them items that they will use to go out and kill things and then die themselves. It is absolutely a horror game. But not a lot of people have picked up on it for some reason. I just don't know. Sure, it may look cutesy, but so did Happy Tree Friends, and that wasn't for kids, I think. Okay, we watched it as kids, but we're fine, I think. So anyway, what was your last game? Or do you have any inputs on the Recettear, an item shop tale?
I don't know. I've never heard of that title either.
Yeah, it's a horror game. Yeah.
Fair enough. I think you went a bit too deep on that one, or a bit lateral thinking, which is totally fine. I thought it's only horror for those of us who have actually worked in retail, and I had for only a very super short time in a very particular circumstance, which was highly advantageous, but it still is horrible. But no, my final title is a fairly little known, also adventure game called Scratches. Scratches is we're kind of really old by now. It was an indie game made in Argentina, and I don't know I don't know how many people heard of it or know of it or even played it at the time. One of the reasons why it stuck with me is because it's really solid for what it does. The other one is because Scratches is the title that revealed to me the shitty level of journalism that was apparent, that was available in GameSpot. And this is in 2000, and I'm gonna say 6. This is a
around that
long
time.
ass.
Yeah,
This is a long ass
I
time
remember playing the demo from Level.
because Scratches is a solid game, and they give it like a 4.
By any
Because
chance, was the review made by that guy who didn't play the games? Because I know he made several reviews and never played the actual games.
I don't know,
told
man.
him as much.
I don't know. I really don't know. Because I was like, oh no, this is nothing to be like, first of all, scorecards in general are bullshit, but GameSpot especially.
Oh yeah.
So what is Scratches though? Scratches is a very basic sort of point and click slash not in a LucasArts sort of way, more in a Myst sort of way. Like you see images and you click on the images and it takes you in those directions, or you interact with the things in the images. I don't know what the name is. There a name for that? Is it like slideshow point and
Mist,
click?
basically. It's
We
Mist.
just call it Myst. Yeah, fair enough. Myst like Myst like horror adventure game, which takes place sometime in the 60s or something. The protagonist is this writer who gets like this moves into, I don't know if he buys it or just rents it out, or rents like this secluded sort of mansion somewhere to write a book. And as the dude is in the house, there is this mystery that steadily, slowly unveils itself about the history of the house. And you find out that the person who lived there may or may not have killed themselves because they were accused of killing their wife. Sounds sort of arche slash stereotypical, but the deeper you get into the game, into the story, basically, the less the less stereotypical it gets, because it also has a mystical aspect to it. I don't want to, in case someone gets interested and wants to play Scratches, I don't want to reveal too much of the storyline, because this is the type of game that it's a mystery movie, basically. Like it's a horror mystery. Once you get to the end, you know how it ends. Not that the lead up is kind of interesting, but after that, not so much. So you basically spend your time in this house trying to write, not doing a lot of that, but instead going through the apparently this the last owner kind of left their shit around, like, and you can find books, and they had this collection of, if I remember correctly, African statuettes and fetishes and sort of things, and there's some weird diary writings about that. And then when you go to sleep, generally you hear the scratches that the game is titled after. You can kind of hear them coming from the walls, kind of hear them from the fireplace, and that's fucked up. Like, especially if you use headphones, that will scare the shit out of you. And there is, if I remember correctly, again, I played this 2006. I don't even know how many, 18 years? 1, 4, 16,
15.
15, 16. A long ass time ago. And I remember that they did good stuff with the sound design. The mystery itself is super interesting. At a certain point, you may or may not have to disentomb someone. You may or may not have to do something to that someone's body, which is creepy. Not in a weird necrophiliac way. No, it's just weird, creepy shit. So yeah, Scratches. Now that I've done this list, I need to track it down, and I kind of need to cover it for my channel. If I remember correctly, again, the voice acting was fine, writing was pretty decent as well. Art style, you know, it was a bit. It wasn't bleeding edge for the time either. But it was more than passable. And yeah, the puzzles were, if I remember, not necessarily. There was no moon logic in that one either. But you constantly had this sense of dread, basically, in the house because it is the 60s. It is dark. It's somewhere in England, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Or at least it's in a place where it rains a lot, not Denmark. That's where I am. And it's so outside it's raining and the house is old and light isn't necessarily as prominent as it would be now. It still is the 60s and whatever the fuck. And yeah, the more you get to read through the diaries and you find things and you find hints of stuff, and I think at a certain point you find either a mention of or you find like a plan of the original house, and you notice something on it that you don't see in the normal house. Yeah, it's a very good mystery with a lot of horror. Well, okay, not a lot of horror, a lot of insane tension. Like, you always expect something to jump out at you from somewhere. Yeah, it's a really well done thriller, tensiony, horror adventure game, which again, I don't think it got the type of attention it actually deserved because of shit stains like whoever the fuck reviewed
I
this for
just check
GameSpot.
out the review on my phone, and it's not the same guy that used to review games he didn't play. It's a different guy. So GameSpot had a bunch of those guys, I guess.
But I don't know if he played it or not. The idea is this is not a 4. It's not a 4 game. It's nowhere near close. Like,
Yeah, but the game didn't sponsor GameSpot, pardon, and
yeah, it was also super indie and made
Yeah.
in Argentina. Where the fuck is Argentina?
probably can't even find it on a map.
Exactly.
They got oil? Oh, they do. Well,
I guess they do now. They might have not known back then. Yeah, scratches. That's my main, because scratches is definitely, it's horror to the bone. It's not in your face horror. It's the type of shit that I like thrillery, weird shit that makes you think and not sure of what, because you're not also sure you're hearing the scratches. You think you're hearing the scratches. And that's a big thing. That's an important thing to mention as well, relating to the game. But yeah, that's as much as I'm gonna say about scratches, because going into more detail would just spoil shit. And it's really not. It's so much worth playing that game. Yes, so that's about it. And I suggested to Unicom that we actually finish the video. I think it's gonna be videos. I think we're past 2 hours.
we're close to 2 hours, but not there yet.
Yeah, sure. With a common suggestion, with like a dual suggestion of a game. And this is something that we both played. We actually played it together. Was it on stream? Were we streaming?
I think we may have streamed one session. I'm not sure if it was on this channel or the streaming channel that YouTube bombarded from deep space.
I don't remember, but I think we streamed it. This is a tabletop game called Betrayal on House on the Hill, which I think in the meanwhile has gotten a sequel as well. I think there's another one. So in Betrayal on House on the Hill, you basically, the really cool thing about it is the randomized scenario.
You could be playing Scooby-Doo, you could be playing Call of Cthulhu, you could be playing, Supernatural. depending on what you got from the dice rolls.
Or a weird combination of those, or something kind of weirdly outside of that. If I remember, so you start with a party of each person has their own stats and shit, and you explore this mansion, which gets discovered as you put tiles in randomly, whatever fuck, and you find omens and items and different things that can help you or hinder you. And at a certain point, once a particular threshold is met, one of you is is revealed to be a villain, or working for the,
Or gets kidnapped and brainwashed and becomes the villain.
Yeah, for the threat. And this threat is randomized within the limits of the game. Do you know how many scenarios it has?
No. I think possibly around 50, though I may be mistaken. It's been a while.
I remember either 20 something or 40 something, to be honest. So basically, once certain thresholds are met, the game instructs you to look for a particular scenario card, basically a scenario booklet. And the game comes with a bunch of these. And in that scenario, it's gonna tell you where you are, in which universe basically you are. So you could be dealing with anything from weird, like some ghost sort of apparition sort of thing, to, in our case, aliens.
Glorg.
In our case, it was aliens, alien abduction.
I was the alien.
And shit like that. So you can play it on Tabletop Simulator if you don't have the actual thing and actual friends. Or you're not in the same geographical location as most of your acquaintances. But if you are looking for something thematic, tabletop-y that's not Cthulhu-based, because there is a shit ton of Cthulhu games, Cthulhu board games, which are also good, by the way. But Betrayal on House on the Hill is the choice, because this is something we both have experience with, and we both know it's good. We guarantee it's a great experience.
Well, this would be it, I guess. This would be the horror games that sort of shaped our lives, and we think that are interesting enough for you to try them even now. Sure, there may be better horror games out there. Probably are. More popular ones, but these are the ones we believe people should, give a go-ahead, a try, an attempt to, a reason to have a spare pair of underwear nearby.
Well, maybe not necessarily all of them spare pair of underwear. Yours tend to be. Scratches is definitely in that. Is definitely in that area, especially with headphones on. And also, do not play it at night. Just don't.
Or do. Depends.
Or do if you don't want to see the brown. And also, I like to think our choices are non-mainstream in general, and hopefully the way in which we describe them made you at least a little bit piqued your interest, as the saying goes, so that at least you can look them up further and see which ones are more up your alley. We did have a very diverse sort of bunch, I think.
Mm-hmm. Possibly every genre. We covered most genres. I don't think there's been a racing horror game.
I don't know, Carmageddon?
No, that's not really horror. You're a monster killing people. It's more of a
You're a monster killing people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there is Twisted Metal, maybe.
No, it's just mostly a multiplayer. It would have to be something like that movie where there's a serial killer with a truck chasing a guy.
Yes,
that would be something.
The movie is called Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah, something like that. That would need to be adapted as a video game for us to have a horror. Actually, no, there is. There's a game that sits in Eastern Europe. I think you're driving a Trabant or something, and you're being chased constantly by people in other cars. I've seen it like
That's
in
not a chase,
trailers.
by the way.
I've seen it in trailers at some point. I don't remember the name. I'm gonna look it up and see if I can find it.
You can't chase Trabants. You just have to lightly jog, and you'll catch it.
Or you just have to
Also,
wait.
Also, wait for it to rain, and it will get soggy.
Yeah. Oh, our cars were terrible. Anyway, this is it for the subject at hand. So, Stephen, what do you have planned or have planned up until this month or from the future, depending on which perspective you're?
Well, let's take it this way. Cool shit I've done on the channel in the past half a year, let's say. I finished some time ago. I finished my deep dive look into Fallout New Vegas, and stitching all the videos together. They're 2 hours and 15 minutes because I have a long form version of it. So if you're into that, that's kind of interesting. I've gotten some interesting responses from some watchers who had played them but never connected all of the story dots. And I'm not saying I connected all of the story dots, but I've connected the main story dots in between the things that happen in New Vegas. And I've also started a new deep dive series into one of the games that I consider to be one of my recent personal classics, called Tyranny. I covered Tyranny way back when it was released, and now I decided I thought it was time to give it another look, play it alongside its expansions, and do a deeper dive in it because I was so fascinated by the game. That was the first time in a long time that I was excited about a video game, is when I was playing Tyranny. So I did I did the first video in that series. It's called Everything You Need to Know About Tyranny. And it basically, I go into some stuff that I didn't cover in the previous review. The previous review is still good to watch if you know nothing about Tyranny. And I plan on continuing in this series with talking about the various major components of the game's lore. Not the game mechanics or anything. I'm going to talk about the world and the lore. So there's going to be an upcoming video about Kairos for certain. And there's going to be a video about the Archons, most surely. And maybe one about the companions as well. Granted, my deep dive series tend to be, I spread them over a long period of time. So this will take me well into next year. But I started that. For those of you who are interested in something completely different, I did an art theory sort of analysis of Bo Burnham's Inside as a result of my recently finished education in art and technology. And by the end of this year, and I also as the time of recording this, but by the time you see this, about a month ago, I released a fairly fair, I want to say, look at Heroes of Might and Magic 5, which I really enjoyed making. I really enjoyed that video. And for the rest of the year, there's gonna be this Shrouded Isle that I've already just covered or will cover soon. And possibly another. Oh yeah, and I need to do something Dune, because the movie's coming out.
Yeah.
And I had planned a lot of Dune shit. I don't have time for any of it, more or less. But I need to do some Dune stuff. So it's either gonna be a game, or it's either gonna be the game and David Lynch's movie. I'm gonna talk about the movie a lot. Like I might do sort of a nonsense review of the movie. It's fucking great. So I'm gonna have to have some Dune shit, and most likely another Is It a Classic kind of in the mood for an adventure. I haven't played an adventure in a while, so I'll probably cover. And then who knows? And these will be intersped with like a bunch of indies and stuff like that. For instance, stuff like Death Trash, Patron. There's a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of other indie stuff. I was just talking about like the things that will be more meaty, because deep dives and super crazy reviews are one thing, and my previews of indie games, especially if they're in early access, different thing. But yeah, that's kind of in the thing. Yeah, so I really need to get to work with the Dune stuff. When is it releasing? Is it releasing soon?
I think it's wait, is it October? Hold on, let's check.
I thought it was December, but it might be October. No, December it was
the Matrix
last year.
Is the Matrix.
The Matrix is the Matrix? Yes.
The Matrix is December. So thank you, Stephen, for joining me today on this spooktastic video about horror and stuff.
Indeed, maybe videos. We don't know it. We'll see.
We're past the 2-hour mark right now. I think we can split somewhere in there.
I think it's ideal to split them into two, because
Yeah, it's gonna be horror games and a bunch of other stuff. It's unrelated horror games.
No, but you can cut off the Dune stuff and put it like a bonus.
Yeah, I guess so.
Or I can put it like a bonus on my channel, and hopefully send people to watch the previousness.
Yes, that will be a good idea. So that'll be it. See you again when we see you again. Who knows? I'll probably have a video about the remade version of Blade of Darkness. Like either by the time you're seeing this video or after it. Who knows? Depending on
timey-wimey shenanigans.
Yeah, time is a fluid. It keeps pouring away and you die eventually. So you can tell that. Well, I'm on vacation now, and the time I'm on vacation is dwindling. So
sorry about that. I know it's sad. But I was gonna say, you should have vacation around Christmas time. So look forward to the next GameTales in 2 months or 2 to 3 months. That the time span is going.
It's getting shorter. We're getting closer to a double event like in Pacific Rim.
Exactamundo.
Actually, this would be a double event if I split the video in two.
That's even better.
Yeah.
You can put one at the beginning of October and the other one, like teaser for at the end.
Yeah, that would work. Okay, so that's probably what we're gonna do. Again, thanks, Stephen. If you like kooky games and city builders, and you want to torture him by getting to watch The Witcher Season 1 fully and Season 2, go to his Patreon. Mm-hmm. And if you're interested in me, watching the adaptation of Guards, I don't know, tell Bill Gates to buy me, I don't know, a jet or something, because otherwise I don't think I will.
The jet, motherfucker.
What can't you do with a jet? That's what you have to think about it. And
fair enough.
Well, that's it. See you again when we see you again. Goodbye, take care, and have fun, everybody. In this spooktacular.
Have a great rest of your day.